Welcome, everybody, to It Tastes Different Gaming Appetizers. What's in the news today? Well, Sony is paying to block games from Microsoft's Game Pass. According to a Brazil, Microsoft wrote in the filings of a Brazil's Administrative Council for Economic Defense, CADE, which is dated August 9th and translated from Portuguese. So that was done by Google. It says Sony pays for blocking rights to prevent developers from adding content to Game Pass and other competing subscription services. Because gaming exclusive partnerships deal often are often kept under secret, under scrutiny, non-disclosure agreements, and so forth. Microsoft implies that Sony is doing this. Now, Microsoft and Sony, they were always like they're kind of like those cousins that did it when they were 13, but they won't admit it, and now they hate each other because one's threatening the other to tell Aunt Margaret, and it's just getting worse and worse. Sony is very anti-consumer. We all know that. So, and that's why they're as big as they are. I mean, that's one of the reasons. So is this something that Sony really did? I mean, this is translated and all that. So, but it seems pretty factual to me just by Sony's own, everything they're doing right now, especially with the merger of Activision. So, Pat, what do you think? Do you think Sony is basically pulling the old Game Pass cock block on Microsoft?
I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, they're worried about Game Pass, right? That's why they started their own subscription service. It wasn't because they thought that gamers needed a subscription service to get all their games and they could offer them deals. It was because Microsoft's doing it and it's successful, and we need to stay relevant and successful. And they're really, really worried about this acquisition. I mean, we've all heard the arguments that they're saying, the games that they're being acquired are. Call of Duty, is a console decision game. Some people out there that probably is a console decision game. Not for me. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's not a console. But that's what they claim, and they're worried. And this is just another way for Microsoft to try to get through their portion of the deal, right? Because Sony's going to basically do everything they can to prevent this deal, while the different world government entities investigate this purchase and buyout to make sure there's no violations of antitrust or conglomerations or anything like that, anything weird going on. So, and Sony's going to throw in as much flack as they can to slow down the system, because this thing's not slated to close until like summer of 2023 at the latest. And that's if the FTC and all these other government agencies don't have concessions they want made on this purchase. So there's a lot that could go wrong with it. It's still not a done deal for Microsoft. And so now that, Microsoft has made this purchase and they've lined some stuff out, a lot of dirty laundry is getting aired out. I mean, as Shane had mentioned, all the deals are done behind closed doors. People don't know what's being contracted. And we don't know if Sony is paying these companies, these developers, a stipend to keep their game off of Game Pass. We don't know that. I would not put it past them, because Sony is that kind of company, but any company can be that kind of company, right? When they feel their bottom line is threatened, they're going to do what they can to protect that bottom line. If that means we want to make sure that game doesn't come to the opponents or the rivals streaming service, then they're going to do that. And it's their prerogative. If the developer wants to sign the deal, they sign the deal, right? It seems a very anti-competitive competition and competitive to me, but I don't make the rules, and I'm not a lawyer to say whether that's legal or not. I mean, I don't know what the legality and rights are that is about anti-competitiveness and fair play and all this stuff. I don't know if there's legalities behind that could get Sony in trouble if that is proven to be true. I'm not sure there is or isn't. Just from my opinion, I think it's very dirty and underhanded if it is happening. But I also wouldn't put it past Sony to do it. And I wouldn't put it past Microsoft to do it neither, if push come to shove. Both of them are companies, and they're going to do what's best for their bottom line. But if you ask me on a personal level, I do think Sony is doing something like that because Game Pass is a huge. I'm always having new friends saying, hey, I just got Game Pass for either PC or for the console or both. And they're like, I love this. Why? Where have I been? One of my buddies just picked it up and was telling me today, that he's like, oh my God, they got all the Wolfensteins on here. I'm playing back through the Wolfensteins because I never got to play them because I just didn't buy them and didn't think they were that good. And now I get to play them as part of my $10 subscription because he bought the PC only version, you know? So, you know, there is things like that that's going on out there. And I think Sony is worried about that. And Sony right now only has a subscription plan for their console. And it's, you know, it's, in my opinion, it's lackluster. It's missing day one games and all kinds of things like that, you know, and Sony could be a real competitor, in my opinion, if they got more third parties to come to their subscription and put their first parties on there. In my opinion, it's a non-option for me if they're not putting first parties on there. No first parties, no money from me, because they don't have enough third parties that are exclusive to them that are on there that I just got to play and spend my $10 or their confusing tiered system that I really don't see spending the money for streaming console PS2 or PS3 games, whichever one is the streaming tier. I don't see paying for that to get that. And so that's just my opinion. But yes, I do think Sony is doing this. And it's how they're trying to stay competitive with Microsoft at this point. But, you know, Microsoft's calling them out and they don't like to have their dirty laundry aired, and neither does Microsoft. They don't like to have their dirty laundry aired, just like Shane says. They're cousins that slept together and they don't want the aunt to know they did it, you know? So, Nick, what do you think, man? Do you think Sony's capable of doing this? And what do you think about if they are doing this?
Yeah, I think they are capable of doing this, and I wouldn't put it past them to be doing this. Exclusivity rights, you know, we think about, you know, console manufacturers have been doing this for years with exclusive titles and exclusivity rights and things like that for, you know, and this is not necessarily that in the sense of it's exclusively coming to PlayStation or Xbox, but mainly blocking it from going to Game Pass, right? Some sort of financial incentive to say, hey, don't put your stuff on Game Pass, because Game Pass is a real competitor, right? I don't think Sony, and I don't think any of us really thought that Game Pass, well, we didn't know, right, how Game Pass was going to turn out. Game Pass turned out to be, as it is now, like a fantastic service that is worth every dollar you put into it, right? It's a great service. So it is understandable for Sony to come out and go, yeah, let's try to block some of these titles, because we've seen in the past, right, titles that we could have sworn were going to come to Game Pass, right? And we were like, I could have swore there was an article about it coming to Game Pass, or why isn't this on Game Pass? And that might be the reason, right? We just recently saw Elden Ring, and it was a bug, right? A bug, quote unquote bug from Microsoft, that Elden Ring has showed up as a cloud streaming version for Game Pass. So you could cloud stream it through Game Pass. And that was a bug, according to Microsoft. But that could be one of those things that could have been brought forth by Sony before this. This could have been a bug for sure. But what I'm saying is, or what I'm getting at is, Elden Ring may have started out as potentially a Game Pass, you know, putting out there. That would have been huge for Microsoft to do, right? But then Sony stepped in and said, nah, right? And so that might be that bug, where might have been an indication of, oh, this was once that. But oops, due to, you know, that code or that whatever is still there, because maybe at some point, you know, there is some sort of longevity to these exclusive rights in the sense, right, where they're blocking Game Pass, where when that, I'm sure more than likely it's not forever, right? I'm sure that for companies that do want to put their games on Game Pass, they might say okay to this, but they're probably going to say okay to say, okay, for 2 years or so, something like that, we won't put it on there. But after that, we're going to stick it on the service, right? You know, because I doubt they would say, okay, we won't forever put it on there, because, I mean, that's the other question we have, right? Is Game Pass good for the publisher or developer of games? Like, what's the deals behind the scenes of that, right? It seems to be either Microsoft's paying out a lot of money to these people, or it seems to be a good idea for publishers and developers to put their games on Game Pass, because a lot are, and there are a lot are continuing to still do so, right? we still have a flux of third party and some big titles coming to Game Pass. PlayStation did create their service, and Patrick's exactly right. They created that service not because of the kindness of their hearts. They did it because they wanted to compete, right? And I have the PlayStation Plus Premium Plus, and I would agree with Patrick. It's right now it's not worth the money, right? There is some stuff on there I like and some retro games I like playing on there. And yeah, it's the PS3 games that you have to stream, which sucks. I wish I could download them because there are some PS3 games I want to play, even though I do own a PS3, so I could play it on there if I wanted to, but I don't want to have to stream them, right? I don't like to stream my games because even on Xbox has a streaming option, and I don't like to do it on there. I might stream something just to check it out for a minute, but I want to be able to then, if I do want to play this game, I want to download it and play it. So hopefully PlayStation will change that. But I agree, if they want to get an influx of people in, that Microsoft has one big advantage over Sony. Even though Sony has better exclusives and more exclusives, Xbox does have one big advantage, and that is exclusives are day one to that program. So you pay for your Game Pass, and whatever day one Microsoft exclusive games come out, they come out day one on there, and you can play them. Halo Infinite, or a new Gears of War that might come out, or the new Perfect Dark, or whatever is going to come straight to the service. And if you're paying your $15 or $10 a month, boom, you can play it day one. And that's what Sony needs. If Sony gets that, that's going to be, if Sony starts doing that, that's a huge boon to Sony, right? They may have gotten a lot of people to sign up at the start, but how many of these people are going to continue? But if they decide day ones, you're going to have those people that are signed up now are going to continue that service. And the people that aren't signed up, that are on the fence, like Patrick, they're going to sign up immediately, right? And so, Sony's is like, come on, Sony, I know you don't want to flex, but you're going to have to if you want to compete, because that's where Microsoft's blowing you out of the water here. But it does, again, going back, do I think they're doing it? Of course I do. And Microsoft would do the same thing. And I think Microsoft still does it now, right? There could, even with Sony's new service, there could be games in the future, probably nothing yet, but there could be games where they're saying, no, you can't put it day one. Stray came day one onto PlayStations, but Stray didn't come out on Xbox. But if we had a game that did come out on all, and it was going to go to PlayStation service day one, I could see Microsoft fitting the bill and saying, no, you can't put it on there, right? Not saying that you have to put it on our servers, but that basically blanket that you can't put it on either one, right? For so many years or something like that. So, these are all companies in the end of the day, and they're all about profit. So whatever helps their bottom line, like Patrick said. What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, I don't think I could have articulated any of that any better. Is Microsoft or is Sony doing it to Microsoft on a personal level, just like you guys said? Yeah, they definitely would do that. I mean, you have to look at what Sony does to publishers or the developers, because if they want to do cross-platform, they have to pay Sony to allow that. I mean, it's basically Sony penalizes them for developers for doing things. It's not a payment, it's a penalty. That's what the payment is. It's for a penalty. You wanted to make cross-platform, okay, you're penalized X amount of dollars. And look how they treat, I don't know if they still do it since that article came out last year, how they treat the indies. They got to pay so much to be able to get their games to be seen on the store up high, instead of having to scroll down and find a bunch of their stuff way down at the bottom of the screen. Sony is all about profit. I mean, they're all about profit, don't get me wrong. But Sony is a little more on the nose with it. They're blatant. They don't apologize for it. And I give them credit for that. They understand that that's who they are. That's what they're going to do. And I'm going to give them credit for that. I don't like it, and I disagree with a lot of their tactics. And this seems like something they would do. And if they want to pay the developers to keep it off of there, fine. But if they're going to punish the developers because they want to put it on there, that's bullcrap. And I mean, if they say, hey, I'm going to put this on yours, but I'm also going to put it on Microsoft Game Pass, when Sony's like, no, you got to pay me X amount of dollars to put that on Game Pass. They're not going to do that. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how that path is, but, a developer's not going to, sit there and pay Sony this money because they want to put it on Game Pass. I mean, it's just killing their profits. So I don't know. I think it's a BS tactic, but I think Sony would definitely do it. Sony's definitely. I don't know if they're worried about Microsoft because Microsoft has done very well this generation. They're still way behind, but they're doing really well. Game Pass has 25 million subscribers as of January this year, according to Google. What's that? If all of them had the cheapest Game Pass, that's $10 a month. It's $250 million a month. I mean, that's a hell of a profit. I don't know what they pay, like you said. I mean, what's behind the scenes of them paying the developers to put them on there and all that stuff. So, I mean, they could only be making 20% of that as profit. And the rest of it's going to developers. I don't know. But Sony, I think, has worries that Microsoft is catching up. I think that's one reason why they did finally go ahead and put out a Game Pass alternative. Even though, in our opinion, it's not as good, and it's too much, in my opinion. But they have some neat stuff to it. Me and Nick have talked about it, and I've looked at some of the games, and I've got Dark Cloud 2 downloaded, and I can't wait to play it again. But is it worth it though? I don't think so. So I think Sony has to do what they can to try to keep the gap between them and Microsoft. I think that's what they're worried about because the closer they get, the more innovative they're going to have to be. And I don't think they want to do that because innovation can cost money. And they're not about spending that money. They're about making the money. So that is, some speculation and personal theories and all that. But you know what? I don't feel I'm far off. So,
yeah, I don't know. Sony, I mean, some of this stuff was talked about last year during when Shane just mentioned the whole lawsuit between the Apple lawsuit and all that stuff last year. Some of the stuff was released in information with that, about Sony's practices behind the scenes and things like that. And I do believe with this acquisition, this will put Microsoft knocking on Sony's back door. And I don't think Sony is liking that because they are challenging their business model way of monetizing is what they're doing. Microsoft has found an innovative way to make money and still stay on top of the game, right? I don't think they're losing money on Game Pass because if they were, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't be pushing as hard. But Microsoft is claiming that Sony is inhibiting the growth of Game Pass by doing this. And to what degree, I have no clue. What percentage of games that would come to Game Pass are they thinking Sony is, or Sony actually is coming in and saying, I'm going to give you X dollar contract if you don't put your game on Game Pass. Like they have to have some insider information to know what Game Pass is paying these people, right? To some extent, they have to say, okay, if you expect to get 100,000 downloads on Game Pass, we will give you X to not put it on Game Pass. So that you get a guaranteed check rather than a potential maybe check from Microsoft if you put your game on there. And for some smaller developers, that's probably really enticing because they've not been in the game long enough or they don't know how well their game is going to go to market. They're like, I think it's going to do well, but I like it, but will everybody else like it? Will it get enough attention and hype to pull in the numbers we expect to make money? That's really the biggest thing. And I think that they are losing their dominance. People are waking up and seeing, Sony is really anti-consumerism. I mean, the whole thing with not being allowed to purchase digital games from anywhere but them, to me, just shows their true colors. I mean, they're like, hey, not only can, in a digital only game, for example, not only can you not buy it from a competitor to get it cheaper, but you can only get it from their store and you have to pay their prescribed price. Whereas if you could have went to some other online marketplace and got a digital code or key for it, you could have probably gotten it for, a discount, 10, 20, 30, 40%, whatever at any given time. But they're basically saying, no, we don't allow that. We don't allow you to go to a competitor and buy a digital game on our marketplace. To me, I don't know how that's not anti-consumerism or some type of competitive laws or something like that, or some monopolies, because there are digital only games out there that then they are basically saying sorry, you can only come buy it from me if you want to play it. I think probably the only thing that's saving them there is the game is not an exclusive to them only, right? You can go out and get it from Microsoft. You can go get it on the Microsoft console or the Steam library. But if you want to play it on that PlayStation ecosystem, you have to come directly to them to buy it. Any digital game that you want on their ecosystem, you have to come directly to them to buy it. So I have a problem with that, a real big problem with that, because that means they set prices for the digital market. And we know that the digital market is always, it's not always, but it's not usually in a sale. You know, there's not always a sale. Like I can go to my local GameStop, you know, as much as they do things dirty, but I can buy a used game for a good chunk of money off the retail version of the game if it's been out and used for a while. You know, and technically I can get $5 or $10 off of it used if I buy it used and it came out within a week or two, right? I can get a discount from it. But with digital, you don't have that option. You can only pay the price you find on the digital marketplace. So Sony is doing everything they can to hold on to their market share because they are afraid of getting passed up by Microsoft. Microsoft itself may not be outselling them in the console market, but they're outselling them in the gaming market, in my opinion. They're doing all the things right that consumers want. But that's just me, and I do think Sony is scared. I think they're worried about exactly the same thing Shane said. They're comfortable sitting fat and happy, not having to innovate or do anything new. They're like, just shovel the money into my bank account, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because it's always been working. And now they're losing that piece of the pie. Their little piece of that pie is shrinking because Microsoft's knocking on that back door going, I'm taking that spot. You know, they're worried. They're not going to overtake them in console sales or anything like that. That's not what I mean. I mean in direct gaming revenue from like Game Pass and from digital sales and peripherals and things like that, because the Xbox has only outsold, the current edition of the console has only outsold the PlayStation like twice this year at any given time. But they don't have the market sales that PlayStation does on its console. But in my opinion, they also don't have the game sales that Microsoft does, their Game Pass and everything else. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah. One thing that bothers me before we go, I just got to point this out. At the beginning of the PS4, Xbox One cycle, Sony's big thing was coming out as for the gamer. And Microsoft at that time, big thing that coming out with their console was, well, people are going to buy it, so we're going to do what the hell we want. That's why Sony got such a huge lead, I think, is because Sony said, hey, you know, we're pro gamers. You want to share your game? Here you go. Hands it over to the other guy. You know, Microsoft's thing was, you want to play an old game, you know, or you can, you know, just play it on your old system. You can't share games. You can't, you know, the games were supposed to be, at that time, the rumor was it was supposed to be locked, always online, things like that. It was very anti-consumer. And now Microsoft or Sony has gotten so far ahead, they have become the anti-consumer developer company. I mean, and Microsoft has, with Don Matrick leaving and Phil Spencer jumping in, he has made it more consumer friendly, you know, focusing on the games. And that's why Microsoft has slowly been catching up. And in this generation, Sony has a lot more to worry about because Microsoft's got a real leader over there that's trying to catch up. And he's, you know, more honest, even though there's still some shady crap because it's a corporation. But, you know, he portrays himself to be more honest about everything. And gamers like that. So I think Sony, to keep that edge, they're going to have to go back to being more friendly with their gamers, more consumer friendly. Because I'm not pro Xbox, I'm not pro Sony. I'm pro who's not going to screw me over. So I think Sony needs to get back on the pro-consumer bandwagon, or it's going to bite them on the ass. My opinion, though. All right. Does anybody got anything else to say before we beat this Sony pony to death? Nope. All right. Everybody, again, thanks for listening. You've stayed all this way, so hit the notifications, hit the subscriptions. Hit your phone, tell your grandma, come and give us a watch, tell your friends, tell everybody, tell those two kissing cousins as well. You know, tell us what you think. Would Sony do this in your mind? If you're a Sony fanboy or you're pro Sony, anti Microsoft, tell us what you think about it. I mean, give us your opinions. We want to know it. And until next time, see ya.